The idea of when one of our favourite Assassin's Creed protagonists becomes an official assassin interests me, so I decided to Google this topic, and to my surprise, nothing came up. In fact, what did come up was a lot of random guesses, theories and straight up misinformation, so that gave me the idea.
I'll do it myself.
We've seen some of our favourite characters officially get inducted into the Brotherhood in their respective games, but not all of them have had this moment shown. Just to be clear, I'm not talking about when they started their training to become an assassin. What I want to do is go over the exact age, the moment each protagonist in the entire series was inducted into the Brotherhood. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So instead of me starting off with Altair, as I often do, let's instead start with Desmond Miles, as after all, Desmond was in fact an assassin, believe it or not. So the exact age Desmond Miles became an official assassin was actually the moment he was born. Now, a lot of people may assume that he became an assassin at an earlier age, because that's mentioned a few times in the games, and he did also take part in assassin training at a very young age. So this led to a lot of us to believe that he eventually became an assassin after all the training he went through, but that's not entirely accurate. So in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, there's an audio tape you can find on Layla's laptop in the modern day, and in that audio file, Desmond is talking to both Sean and Rebecca in 2012, and he says this.
What I said was, I wish I hadn't been born into the Assassins. I wish I had chosen this life.
So yeah, Desmond himself even says he wishes he was never born into the Assassins, but instead he wishes he had a choice. So in essence, the age of when Desmond Miles became an official assassin is officially 0 or 1, depending on how you look at it. Maybe that's the reason we didn't get to see a younger Desmond cutscene, as he was simply born into this life. Okay, now moving on from a modern day assassin, and we now have the first official assassin that we play as in the entire series, and that is Altair. Now, Altair is in a similar situation to Desmond in terms of how he became an assassin. From birth, Altair was pretty much destined for the assassin's life and was raised to become an assassin. We do know that he was raised within the Brotherhood in Masyaf, and at that moment, Al-Mualim became his mentor. The story of how he became an assassin is one of the more interesting stories. So Abbas Sofyan, who at that time was Altair's close friend, revealed the truth about Altair's father to Altair when they were both kids. Now this truth led to a heated confrontation, ending with both boys in Masyaf's dungeon, and following a month of imprisonment, they returned to their training, and given the gravity of Abbas Sofyan's actions, he was subjected by Al-Mualim to an extra year of training, whereas Altair advanced and was officially announced as an assassin. It's unclear as to the exact age Altair became an assassin, but since we know that as a child he was trained, it's definitely a very young age that he was inducted into the Brotherhood. It's also pretty interesting when you realize that Altair managed to achieve the rank of Master Assassin by just the age of 24. To put that into perspective, that's the youngest age an assassin has ever achieved the Master Assassin rank at that time. I'm pretty sure Basim has now taken that achievement. I'll talk more about him later in the video. Now that brings me on to perhaps the most loved and recognized assassin in the entire series, and that's Ezio Auditore. Now, Ezio's age and background of when he officially became an assassin confuses a lot of people, and when I first played Assassin's Creed 2 many years ago, it also confused me too, because it's presented in a way that's not exactly the clearest to follow. At the start of Assassin's Creed 2, Ezio is 17 years old, leading to some confusion. Some people might think that Ezio's assassin career starts when we first control him as a baby or a teenager in the fight against Vieri de Pazzi. However, these moments are not when he truly begins his life as an assassin. There's also a lot of confusion a few hours later into the game, so when Ezio's father is locked up, he sends Ezio to retrieve a letter to give to Uberto. He also puts on the assassin robes from the chest. And right here is where people assume he's an assassin, but that's not the case. He's simply just wearing the robes. As for the exact age and when he officially became a member of the Assassin Brotherhood, that's way later in the game at the age of 29, which is more on the older side compared to the likes of Desmond and Altair. In fact, we even see the initiation take place in the game. It happens when all the people helping Ezio throughout the entire game reveal themselves as an assassin, as well as them reciting the 3 tenets of the creed, which ends with the leap of faith. This moment right here is the exact moment Ezio officially becomes an assassin. So it's not at birth, it's not at 17 years old, and it's also not when he first puts on the robes, but instead at the age of 29 near the end of Assassin's Creed 2. Now, moving on from Ezio, we now have Connor Kenway. This is a strange one because you'd think that being the father of Haytham Kenway and the grandchild of Edward Kenway, he'd be born into the life as an assassin. but that's not exactly the case. Connor's induction into the Assassin Brotherhood was a relatively informal process, especially when compared to the traditional ceremonies typically held for such significant occasions. So after returning from a mission, Achilles, his mentor, acknowledged Connor's readiness to officially become an assassin. He noted that although they had once held ceremonies for this, neither he nor Connor were much for formalities. Instead, Achilles recognized Connor's preparedness through his acquisition of tools, training, targets, and goals, and with that he welcomed Connor to the Assassin Brotherhood. And the age of when he became an assassin is actually 14 years old, which is very young, just like the likes of Altair. I do like Connor's way of joining the Brotherhood, as he was not raised by, his father, but instead it was Achilles Davenport. It's also interesting that we know Connor's reasonings for originally becoming an assassin, which was to mainly hunt down Charles Lee, which ultimately set him on the path to join the Assassins. What's pretty interesting to note is that Connor's mother, whose name I won't bother to pronounce, was not an assassin herself, but instead simply an ally. Okay, so moving on from a mainline Assassin's Creed game, and we now have Aveline de Grandpré from Assassin's Creed Liberation. Now her story and journey of when and how she became an official assassin is quite interesting. So the age of when she was officially inducted into the Brotherhood is not clear enough to just say, but instead you'd have to do some working out from the different years. And with that said, I managed to work out the age of 12 as the official age of becoming an assassin, which just like Altair and Connor is also very young. Now, if you're wondering how I managed to get the age of 12, well, first off, Aveline was born in 1747, and in 1759, at the age of 12, Aveline attempted to rescue a slave but was caught doing this. However, the African assassin Agate rescued her and took Aveline under his wing. It's said that a few months later, after training her, she officially became inducted into the Brotherhood. And if this is not enough proof, later in the game, Aveline says to Agate, "I was a child when you brought me into the Brotherhood and made me an assassin." This of course lines up with what I said. Now, the thing with Aveline is that she did not have an assassin background, but instead was raised in a kind of caring environment thanks to her father Philippe and her mother Jean, or Jeanne, however you pronounce that. Despite the comforts of her upbringing, Aveline was acutely aware of the injustice surrounding her, particularly those rooted in slavery and racial inequality. As for her path to becoming an assassin, well, as I mentioned earlier, it began after an encounter with Agate, an African assassin who was impressed by her bravery and dedication. So Agate decided to mentor Aveline and officially recruited her into the Assassin Brotherhood. Now, moving on to Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but more specifically Edward Kenway. Now, the age as to when Edward Kenway became an official assassin is very unclear, as throughout the entire story of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, there is no mention or showing of him joining the West Indies Brotherhood. What we do know is that he did eventually join the British Brotherhood after returning home to England. So based on all the information in the books, the ending of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, and also the official Assassin's Creed wiki page, an educated guess of the age can be made. So as I just mentioned, he became an official assassin after returning home to England, and at the end of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, we can see him on the Jackdaw with his daughter heading back to England. The unfortunate situation is that we don't know if Edward Kenway became an assassin the moment he arrived in England, as it could even be a few years later. The only thing that's mentioned is that he joined the British Assassins when he arrived home. This of course means he'd at least have to be 29 years old, as that's simply the age he was when Black Flag ended. But if I was to work out an educated guess, we need to establish a timeline based on the information we know from the books and the official wiki. So Edward was born in 1693. We've got information mentioning that he became a master assassin and then ended up getting married to Tessa, who got pregnant in 1725. Assuming Edward Kenway joined the British Brotherhood shortly before 1725, given the context surrounding his actions in London, his meeting with Tessa, and the subsequent purchase of a manor in Queen's Anne Square, it's reasonable to deduce that he became an official member of the Brotherhood around 1724 or slightly earlier. So if we calculate his birth year, which is 1693, to the year he likely became an assassin, which is 1724, Edward Kenway to me would have been approximately 31 years old when he fully embraced the assassin cause. Okay, so after Assassin's Creed Black Flag, let's move on to Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry, and for this game it's Adewale. Now Adewale's character in terms of being an assassin is a bit different. At first he was initially the quartermaster aboard the Jackdaw, and he was deeply involved in the pirate lifestyle that dominated the game's early story. However, his personal journey from piracy to becoming an assassin was marked by ideological change. Adewale's induction into the Assassin Brotherhood truly began after a key phase in his life. So if you played Black Flag or read up on the lore, you'd know that Adewale visited the Assassin base and was impressed by the commitment to a greater good. However, it was not until 1719, after 4 years on the Jackdaw, that he decided to abandon his life as a pirate. Adewale went back to Tulum and arranged a meeting with Atabay, the leader of the West Indies Brotherhood of Assassins. You see, Adewale was impressed and he wanted part of that life. It was here when Adewale joined the Brotherhood and he started training with Atabay. As for what age all of this occurred at, well, considering Adewale was born in 1692 and his meeting with the Assassins to officially become a member was in 1719, simple math would make him 27 years old when he officially became a member of the West Indies Brotherhood of Assassins, which does seem like a good age. I mean, after all, that's pretty much his prime years if I'm not mistaken. Next up, we have a character whose current occupation is pretty much ex-assassin turned Templar, and that is Shay Cormac from Assassin's Creed Rogue. Now for this one, I'll go over both ages when he became an assassin and also a Templar. So starting off, Shay was born in 1731 in New York to a family of Irish immigrants. His entire early life before becoming an assassin was marked by personal losses and challenges. His mother died giving birth to him, and his father, a merchant marine, was frequently away, leaving Shay to be raised by his aunt in a tough part of the city. However, his life took a drastic turn in 1747 when a severe storm killed his father and several crew members, leaving Shay grief-stricken and directionless. In the aftermath of this tragedy, Shay's life pretty much went to shit, as he wandered around the streets of New York taking part in brawls in taverns. His childhood friend, Liam O'Brien, stepped in to help Shay recover from his lowest point. Later that same year, Liam introduced Shay to Achilles Davenport, the mentor of the colonial Brotherhood of Assassins. Now he was impressed and he saw the potential in Shay, so he inducted him into the Brotherhood at the age of just 16. As for the age of when he officially became a Templar, this was in 1757, making him 26, so that's 10 years after becoming a member of the Brotherhood. He was formally inducted into the Templar Order by Haytham Kenway in a ceremony attended by many other members of the colonial right. Next up in this video, we now have Arno Dorian, and his story and age of becoming an assassin is pretty clear, and thankfully it's not exactly the hardest to understand. So his path to joining the Brotherhood was a blend of personal tragedy and a quest for redemption. Initially, Arno was not seeking to join the Assassins directly. His primary motivation was to understand and possibly avenge the death of Francois, as well as to clear his own name and resolve his feelings towards Elise, who revealed herself to be a Templar. His introduction to the Assassin Brotherhood began while imprisoned in the Bastille, where he met Pierre Bellic, a fellow prisoner who recognized Arno's potential and connection to the assassins through his father. Fast forward a little bit after the whole prison escape, Arno stood before the Assassin Council and expressed his desire to join the Brotherhood, motivated by his need to atone for past mistakes and find a purpose greater than himself. Despite some initial reluctance from the council members, Bellic's advocacy and Mirabeau's approval allowed Arno to undergo the initiation ritual. The ceremony involved drinking from a chalice containing a hallucinogenic substance, causing Arno to confront visions of his past and the deaths that he'd be connected to. And when he finished whatever the hell he was experiencing from wherever the hell was in that drink, Arno was officially welcomed into the Brotherhood. As for the exact age this all occurred, well, it was the young and mature age of 21. And if you're wondering how I managed to get to the age of 21, well, he was born in 1768, and the ending of the storming of the Bastille was in 1789. And assuming we did not time skip after that, he went to the council at the age of 21 and became a member from there. Both Jacob and Evie Frye's age as to when they became assassins is a big misconception, as a lot of people would assume that they were born into the Brotherhood simply because their father was an assassin himself. But that's not entirely the case. I mean, it's kind of the case, but not entirely. The age that I managed to get was 6 years old for both the Frye Twins. So they were born in 1847, and after their father, Ethan Frye, returned from India, where he had gone to mourn and recover from the loss of their mother Cecily, who died in childbirth, Ethan took over raising the twins in Crawley, and began to personally train them in the ways of the assassins. This early introduction to the creed and their training under their father marked their formal initiation into the Brotherhood at a very young age. Both twins were very different in terms of their style. Evie was more relished in their father's teachings and took being an assassin pretty serious, whereas Jacob paid far less attention, and over time he came to hate his father's lessons. Of course, this is shown when they're both grown up, and it's evident who cares more about the Brotherhood. Okay, so here's where the video starts to take a turn, especially with the two after this one. So let's start off with Bayek and Aya from Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, during both Bayek and Aya's journey during the game's story, the Hidden Ones, or the Brotherhood, was never a thing until the very end of the game. Bayek and Aya formed the Hidden Ones, which is the precursor to the Assassin Brotherhood in 47 BCE. And since Bayek was born around 85 BCE, this does not exactly make his age any clearer. So I would take an educated guess and say he was around 38 years old when he officially created the Hidden Ones alongside Aya, and he was around 36 years old when the game started. And as for Aya's age, while her exact birth year is not also specified, it's reasonable to assume that she was born around the same time as Bayek, give or take a few years, making her birth year likely close to 85 BCE as well. It's a shame that the developers did not explicitly give their ages away, but instead left us to guess. So yeah, while these two characters did not exactly get inducted into the Brotherhood, I guess creating the actual Assassin's Creed is pretty much the same thing as being inducted, or at least I'd hope it is. Okay, now this is a bit of a predicament. We now have Kassandra or Alexios, depending on who you chose. But I'm going to say Kassandra because that's a canonical character whether you like it or not. Anyway, Kassandra was never actually an assassin, so attempting to deduce an age for Kassandra is impossible. I mean, I guess the only thing I can even say is that Kassandra was around the age of 400 years old when she first met the Brotherhood. So there's that, I guess. But then again, she lived for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's not exactly clear what she did during all those years. Maybe she did join the Assassins and we don't know about it. I mean, there is so much you could have done. I might make a video on that topic as it's quite interesting. Anyway, yeah, let's just move on because there is no age to say. This one is just like Kassandra's situation, and that is Eivor from Assassin's Creed Valhalla. If you play the game, then you know that Eivor never actually became a member of the Hidden Ones, so determining an age is impossible. But what I can say is that Eivor was 25 years old when they first got the Hidden Blade from Basim and Hytham. Eivor was around mid-20s or 26 when they performed their very first leap of faith. It is unfortunate that Eivor never actually joined the Hidden Ones, but instead just remained a Viking. I mean, they did basically work closely with them and adopt their techniques, so she might as well have become one. But oh well, let's just move on. And last but certainly not least is Basim ibn Ishaq from Assassin's Creed Mirage. Now Basim's age is all over the place when it comes to determining when he was formally inducted into the Brotherhood, as after all his exact age is not explicitly mentioned in the story of Assassin's Creed Mirage. The events leading up to Basim's induction suggest that he was already a mature and skilled individual. His earlier life as a thief in Anbar, coupled with his experience with a mysterious artifact, catalyzed his transition away from a life of ordinary crime. Fast forward a little to the dramatic rescue and escape with Rashan, Basim was taken to the Hidden Ones base at Alamut. Here, under Rashan's mentorship, he began to learn the ways of the Hidden Ones, embracing their tenets, learning sword fighting, stealth tactics, and the philosophical underpinnings that distinguish the Hidden Ones from mere vigilantes or criminals. Now, it's important to note that this period of training and personal growth likely took place when Basim was in his mid-20s. His training ended with his formal induction into the Brotherhood, a ceremony that included receiving the Hidden Blade and the traditional amputation of his left ring finger. These are of course rituals signifying his full acceptance of the Hidden Ones and his commitment to their cause. Now, since we do not know his exact age, what I can say is that Basim was 17 years old when he escaped Anbar, and was 26 years old when he met Sigurd in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is kind of a surprise because in Valhalla he looks like he's about 50. But if I was to make an educated guess, it's 100% early 20s as to when he was officially inducted into the Brotherhood. But this one I'm kind of unsure about. If you guys have any information you'd like to provide, just leave it in the comments below. So there you have it. That is my attempt at identifying every protagonist's age of when they became an official assassin. Of course, the likes of Kassandra and Eivor make this video a bit more tedious as they are both not assassins, but I tried my best. If you think I made a mistake or have a different explanation for a certain character, then just leave it down in the comments below. Anyways, if you did enjoy this video, check out my other video that I made where I went over the age of when each protagonist died. Do consider hitting that subscribe button. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one.